Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are very much subject to our senses. We have a mouth and a tongue, and the tongue is looking for flavors. We have eyes, and the eyes are looking for beauty. We have ears, and the ears want to hear beautiful sounds. We have a nose, and the nose searches for smells. The heart wants a state of happiness. And then, of course, there's also mind and desire. And mind and desire look throughout the world in order to become satisfied. And where mind and desire looks are in the 64 arts of the world, and in the 64 sexual arts of the world, and in the various sciences in the world. So we have a mind, we have a heart, we have a soul, and we have all of these senses. We look for things that are beautiful. Now, let's say, for instance, we see an orange. First, we smell the orange, then we see the orange. But in order to eat the orange or to taste the orange, we need to peel the orange. Without peeling the orange, we can't get at the substance of the orange. So if we don't understand that we need to peel, we're never going to understand what is really inside the orange. What's inside the orange is hidden inside the peel. So we have to take the peel off, discard the peel, and then we end up with the essence of the orange, the food within the orange. But there are different ways to approach that. We can eat it, we can squeeze it, we can juice it, we can do so many different things to it. We have to discard the peel of the orange. And it's like that with the world. To get to the essence of the world, we have to discard the peel of the world. We have to understand that within the world, there is an essence, and we see the outside. We see the covering. We don't see the essence of things. If we were to be able to see beneath the covering, we would be witnessing things that are extraordinary. In basic science now, children are taught that atoms make up what it is that we see, that they're like the building blocks of this world. In quantum mechanics, we begin to understand that these building blocks operate quite differently than the way the visible world operates. So you have a visible world that operates in one way, and then you have an invisible world that operates another way. The essence is different than that which we see. The mind has a certain power that moves it towards everything. The mind has its own mouth. and it wants to absorb everything. It has trouble differentiating between what it can and what it cannot absorb. It has trouble differentiating between what is good for it and what is not good for it. It can't tell the peel from the essence. Fortunately, our mind is not our only method of cognition. We have other methods of cognition. We can cognate from the heart, and within the heart lies wisdom. Scientists have done some studies and have found that the heart contains a certain number of brain cells so that it works in a similar way as the brain can work, but it works from the heart. We have to learn how to work from the heart. We have to learn to differentiate between what's good and what's bad on the outside of us. When you peel open an orange, you'll find within the orange, there are layers, many, many layers, 10, 11, 12 pieces within an orange. Within our mind, we also have many layers. You've heard people talk about left brain and right brain and the different ways we cognate and the different ways we see things. Well, there are literally millions upon millions of ways to see things with the mind. But the mind is not wise. The mind is at the level of intellect. And at the level of intellect, it deals only with that which is elemental. To go beyond that which is elemental, we have to somehow become wise. We have to somehow have the influence of wisdom act within us at the same time that our mind is acting within us. The mind will lead you astray if left to its own devices, because the mind critically doesn't understand the dangers of things in the world. For instance, the mind may be obsessed with fame, but the mind doesn't understand the danger that fame will bring you. The mind might be obsessed with wealth, but the mind doesn't understand the danger that wealth can bring you. All of these things are used by Satan as advertisements towards bringing you towards his understanding of things. The world will tell you, Satan will tell you, that there are positive attributes to fame, and that fame will take you to wonderful places. In the same way, it'll tell you there are many positive attributes to wealth, and wealth can take you to beautiful places. It's like if you see a tree that is poisonous and it has beautiful fruit on it, and you pluck a fruit from this poison tree and you bite it, and it really tastes good. So you eat it, and then you eat another one. But soon, this fruit from the poisonous tree will kill you, because the poison of the tree is in the fruit. Like that, we have a mind, a heart, and a soul. The mind has one way of seeing things. The heart has another way of seeing things. And the soul as a third way of understanding things. In order for us to come to understand the truth of our lives, the importance of our lives, and the ultimate goal of our lives, we cannot just function through the mind. And we have to be able to straighten ourselves out through wisdom, through the use of the heart. The problem is that for man to be relieved of the influence of the mind, usually for most men, there has to be an intermediary, someone who comes along and explains the limitations of the mind so that we don't believe that the mind is the final arbiter of things, that the mind can understand things in the ultimate truth of the way they are. And this is where the influence of the sheikh comes in, where the influence of the teacher comes in, where man has lost the I, lost self-motive, lost trying to aggrandize the self, and understands that in reality, we are not this self, this body that we walk around in, that there's more to us than that, and we have to discover what that is. Well, that discovery only happens through wisdom. That discovery only happens through bypassing the mind and functioning through the heart. And in the world, this is very difficult to do. Read the newspaper. All the newspapers basically talk about are the politics of the day and what the politicians are trying to do to make better the functioning of the country, to make better the functioning of the world for each of us. And they see this as an end in itself. So if we can make the world function for us, and the world functions smoothly for us, we have made a great accomplishment. The politicians have succeeded if the economy is working, if the military is working, if the various functions of government are working, and the people are obtaining the material wealth that they desire. So most of the functioning within the governments, within this world, is to maintain a material success for people, to maintain a standard of living for people where everybody gets what they need to eat, everybody gets what they need to function within society. This is a false impression of success. This is a false impression of what our life is about. Our life is not about eating, having money, and being able to function within society. That is not the end all of our existence. We need to understand that within our existence, there is much more than that. We are in a temporary phase that has a beginning and has an end. We come into this world and we leave this world. And we think this world is a very big deal, and there is an entire history here. But look at it like this. Imagine there's a battery, and the battery has a socket at the end of it, and you put a bulb in it, and you turn on the switch, the bulb goes on. If you turn off the switch, the current goes back into the battery and the bulb goes out. Well, our life is like that. Allah turns the switch on and we come into the world. And then after a period of time, he turns the switch off and this world is finished for us. And this is the way it is for everyone in the world. Yet the world treats itself as if it didn't have an end. The world treats itself as if it goes on without ceasing. The world doesn't take into consideration the fact that people are constantly disappearing from it, and it doesn't take time to react to that. The newspapers don't write about it. The various media don't get involved in it. And church and state in many areas are separated. And even when they're not separated, this isn't considered. So it's left to each of us individually to take a look at our life and to decide where our life is going and what it is that we want to do with it. One of the questions that arises is, how do we begin to make our life tranquil? How do we begin to give our life peace? In order to do this, we have to overcome many of the traits of society. We have to overcome our culture. We have to overcome our religion. We have to overcome our clan. We have to overcome our caste. We have to overcome our relatives. We have to overcome all of the things that we're involved with, because each of these things carries baggage. If we are in a country where there's a caste system, the caste carries baggage. If we're in a country where religions are very strong, the religion carries baggage. And what is this baggage that all of these different societal constructs carry? Well, most of them carry their history, and their history consists of difficulties with others, difficulties with various other groups, and an enmity that has risen up within people over this history. So religion carries animosities. Culture carries animosities. Families carry animosities. Castes carry animosities. Tribes carry animosities. And if we carry these animosities, we get caught up in them and they become a part of our life. Now, when a man is carrying animosities, carrying anger, carrying revenge, he is cultivating these things in his being. They grow within him. In the same way that a garden grows, we grow these qualities. And unless we learn to do away with the animosities of the past, the hatreds of the past, the angers of the past, the revenge of the past, we will continue to grow these things within us. Now, in the United States, one of the interesting things that's happened is that people came from all over the world and established this country. Now, for most of them, when they came, they left their culture, and they left their animosities that existed in the country that they came from. For many, they didn't do that. They came here and held on to these animosities and refused to integrate within the country. But if we cannot relieve ourselves of the past, of our ancestral history, we are doomed to cultivate the same difficulties that our ancestral history cultivated, and we are doomed to make it part of who we are. In order for us to find tranquility in our lives, it should be self-evident that we have to give up all the things that aren't tranquil. In order for us to find peace in our lives, it should be self-evident that we have to give up all the things that aren't peaceful. So if we carry enmity, if we carry hatred, if we carry revenge, what happens is we become fanatic. A fanaticism enters into us that insists that we somehow correct the transgressions against our group from the past. If we tried to do this, it is a never-ending succession of transgression upon transgression upon transgression, upon difficulty upon difficulty upon difficulty, upon murder upon murder upon murder, to try to rectify things people don't even remember. There were two groups of people who lived on opposite ends of the valley. And since anyone could remember, there was always difficulty between them. There was always animosity between them. Soon, with the expansion of the population on each side of the valley, the groups began to expand and expand, and soon they were living near each other. But this underlying animosity still existed under the surface. One day, a teacher was in class with her students, and they were all standing in line. And then one student smacked another student across the head. And the teacher went up to him and said, "What are you doing? Why did you do that to him?" And the student said, "I didn't do that. He started it." She said, "I watched you. Everybody was standing in line peacefully, and you smacked them across the head." And the student said, "Yes, I did. But a year and a half ago, he did the same thing to me, and he started it." And then she realized that peace had to be made between the two sides of the valley. And she began to call one of her neighbors, who she never spoke to begin that process. We have to create that process in ourselves. We cannot walk with hatred and expect to find peace in our lives. We cannot walk with all of the cultural, religious, caste, language, national baggage that we carry and expect to find peace in our lives. There are parts of the world right now that are tribal, where there's never been peace, there will never be peace, and every once in a while, thousands of people are killed in eruptions of violence for things people can't even remember. And it's not difficult to find these places. The massacres in Rwanda, the tribal differences in Albania, the tribal differences in Syria, the tribal differences in Yemen. These things are going on all over the world because people refuse to be at peace with each other, because people insist that ancient animosities are as important today as they were 100 years ago, and they keep these animosities alive within them. They believe that is their obligation to carry on the revenge of their ancestors. And as long as man does this, man is doomed to constantly being in a state of distress, in a state of anxiety, in a state of difficulty. So what is it that we can do individually? Well, we're not going to change the world, but what we can do is change ourselves. And if enough of us change ourselves, the world will begin to change. But we can't reach out to the world until we fixed what's inside of us, until we fixed ourselves. We have to separate the world from us. We have to peel the world from us. So in the same way you have to peel the orange in order to get at the essence of it, we have to peel all of the animosities that we've grown up with. We have to peel all the anger that we've grown up with. We have to peel all of the stereotypes that we've grown up with. We can't take for granted that what we've been told is the truth. And because our relatives, our ancestors have acted in one way, we have to continue to act in the same way. In truth, we have to understand that our purpose here is not to seek revenge for our lineage. Our purpose here is to find our true self, and in finding our true self, to find God. Now, those are entirely different purposes. Those are entirely different things to accomplish within this life. And if you don't have an intermediary to come in and explain to you that you have to stop the madness and go in another direction, the madness will overwhelm you, and you will become one of the ones who helps propagate the madness. You will become one of the ones who helps propagate the anger, who helps propagate the revenge. And there is too much of that in the world already. So even if we can't stop the world from acting in that way, what we can do is we can stop acting in that way. So we have to give up our religious differences. We have to give up our race differences. We have to give up all of these differences and understand the true unity that exists as the essence within all people. But if we are unable to peel away the cover that separates us from each other, if we're unable to peel away that which wants to maintain these differences, we are doomed to live within differences, and we are doomed never to find peace. So we have to understand that for our own souls, our own heart, our own self-preservation, our own path to reality, to find this, we have to give up the way of the world. We have to somehow find a safe, sacred place within this world. Now, many people who understand this run away to monasteries. They run away to places where they're separated from the world. We have chosen the path of living within the world, yet being separate from it at the same time. We cannot accept the common understanding of things that creates differences. We cannot accept the common understanding of things that creates separations. We cannot look at ourselves and think we are separate from our brother. We have to develop within us love and kindness and tolerance and forgiveness, no matter what everybody else around us does. Just because your parents can't forgive doesn't mean you shouldn't forgive. Just because your race can't forgive doesn't mean that you shouldn't forgive. Just because your religion doesn't forgive doesn't mean that you can't forgive. There are so many atrocities that are made in this world in the name of righteousness. There are so many atrocities committed in this world in the name of truth. And all that is whoever's committing these atrocities is looking to superimpose a cover over what they're doing to somehow give credence to what they're doing, to somehow make it seem that what they're doing is okay. None of these things are okay. And until we truly grasp that these things aren't okay, we will not be okay. So for us to become real, we have to enter reality. And what is reality? Reality is Hak. Hak is God's name for reality. Hak is God's qualities. So for us to become real, for us to know the truth, we have to understand compassion and become compassion. We have to understand mercy and become mercy. And we have to give up all of the things that are not related to mercy. We have to give up all of the things that aren't related to compassion. We have to give up all of the things that aren't related to love and forgiveness. It's only when we find forgiveness are we forgiven. It's only when we find love are we loved. It's only that when we find compassion, is compassion shown to us. There's a reciprocity in existence. What we give out is what comes back to us. The ultimate arbiter of things is not our fellow man. The ultimate arbiter of things is our Creator, our Lord, and our Lord is just, while our fellow men are not just. When our fellow men are not truthful, God is truthful, God is just, and we are not looking to our fellow man for judgment over us. We are looking to God for judgment over us. And we who look into things deeply and have been able to peel away that which isn't true, know what God's justice is. We know what God's truth is. And at the core of it is his mercy and his compassion. And if we are to be at one with him, if we are to be at unity with him, we have to be at one with his qualities and at unity with his qualities. And this is the work that we have to do. We can't look for accolades from the world. We can't look for medals from the world. We can't look for titles from the world. The world is corrupt, and the world tries to maintain its corruption as truth. But in reality, the only truth is God. And the only Reality is God, and God is comprised of his essences and of his qualities. And all of these deal with the love that came about at the time of creation. So if we can't love, we can't find God. If we can't forgive, we can't find God. If we can't be compassionate, we can't find God. Now, what is more important, finding God or finding the world? Conquering ourselves so that we are acceptable to God, or conquering the world so that we can control it? These are questions we have to constantly ask ourselves. What are we doing, and why are we doing it? And the answer should always be to get ourselves straight with God. That's why we ask every day to be put on the straight path. And the straight path means his path, means his qualities, means to be acceptable by him. So may it come to pass that our qualities are such that Allah recognizes those qualities as his qualities, and we become acceptable to him. Ameen, Ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.